MG Rob back with you, and today we're not working on the Metropolitan. That's tomorrow. Today we're working on the Jeep again. So I'm a very big proponent of actually painting all the parts before we put them on. And in this case, since the engine that was in the Jeep, being a replacement engine, was originally black, but it wasn't gloss black, so I got semi-gloss black enamel here, engine paint. Now, one little quick tech tip. It depends kind of on the brand paint you're using, because some of them aren't this way anymore with new technologies. But if you look on the top of these cans of paint, a lot of times you'll see a little black mark like this right here around this rim. What that indicates is during the production process, the straws that come down through here, they have a little bit of a curve to them, and they go all the way into the corner of the can. And as they're marked right here which direction that's curved. So when this gets capped, that straw will be in this corner. So if you're painting where you're having to angle the can down a little bit, you want that dot right at the nozzle. But if you're painting uphill a little bit, then you want to turn that 180 away from that dot when you're painting uphill underneath something. That ensures that you're always picking up paint from the very bottom corner, especially when you get to the bottom of the can where there's not much left. You can get more continuous spray, and you won't be spraying just a lot of air and spitting so much. So another quick tech tip. So what we have here is we got the new water pump here versus the old water pump. And a minor issue. Something we deal with working on these older vehicles all the time is tolerances. Variations in the parts, and parts that don't fit exactly the way they should or exactly the way the old part did. So in this case, as you can see right here, we got this hole where a long bolt has to go through. This one's longer than it needs to be, but it just clears the pulley by a little bit. Well, this new one here cannot get the bolt in there. This pulley is a little larger than this one is, but it's not enough larger to account for that difference. So there's got to be some stack tolerances that making it off a little bit. I even looked at trying a socket head cap screw, and no, not quite. So what we're gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to do a stud. But it turns out it is quite difficult anymore to go anywhere and find a stud that's any longer than maybe 1.5 inches. And I need it to be 2.5 to go through here, plus 1/2 to 3/4 to go into the block. So I got this bolt here, and I'm gonna cut it off, rethread the end here, and make my own stud. All right, so now we're back at the Jeep. Now I ended up not doing the stud exactly the way I was intending on doing it. I intended on doing, about 5/8 of an inch of coarse thread here. But the only coarse thread dies I had were El Cheapos from Harbor Freight, and it just simply would not cut at all. All it did was just take the end of just munch the end of it's all it did. So I ended up going fine thread, because all my good stuff is in fine thread, because the stuff I usually work on is mostly fine thread. So I'm just gonna put it in with this side in the block and this side out and put a fine thread nut on it. We'll call it good at that. All right, so got the stud in there, got the gasket gooped up. So let's put this thing on. Now, I I'm not 100% sure on this particular one, but a lot of these older vehicles like this, especially at the British stuff that I'm used to working on, the water pumps use a carbon face seal on them. So when you first put them on, you need to run it dry for 30 seconds to a minute before you add coolant in order for the carbon face to wear in properly and seal. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this particular vehicle. I'll have to do some looking and see if it's that way. And of course, I'm going to use all new hardware on it, because that's just the way I like to do it. Now I did dig around to find a new hose to go here to replace the one that was on here before that wasn't the right size. And it wasn't something I had in stock, I had to get it in, but that'll work just fine. And of course, new clamps. Let's see if these clamps will even fit. There we go. For these 1/2-inch hoses, I kind of like these narrower clamps, but they are a little hard to find in the right size. All right, so there's the water pump on. Now, I did actually go find myself a longer belt as well. This one here I'm using as a test to find out if this is the right size. And if it is, then I'll get a second one. Ooh. So it looks like that's going to work out just fine. So I just need to grab the second belt for this. And I can finish, and I still got to find a lower radiator hose. I dug around at the park store and found this upper hose, which I can cut to make my hose. And then I still got to search through the racks to find the proper lower hose for it. I'm going to get everything back in position, set it in place, and see just what needs to change, because this wasn't actually sitting exactly the way it should have been. And then I'll go digging through the racks until I can find something to fit it. All right, so now I'm ready to put the thermostat in. And of course, I want to check, make sure it's free before putting it in. But then of course, like a dummy, I forgot to make sure I had a gasket for this. I grabbed a thermostat and forgot to look for a gasket. So, I'm going to stop right here for now and find me a gasket and maybe find me a lower hose, get the other belt, and then I can finish putting the whole thing together next time. So this is MG Rob. Later.